You're listening to the Vint Wine Podcast, where you'll hear interviews and stories from around the wine world. From writers and critics to winemakers and sommeliers, we'll explore the people and businesses who are instrumental in shaping wine culture. Enjoy the show.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Vint Wine Podcast. I hope everybody enjoyed the inaugural weekly wine report that came out on Monday. Today we are going to jump right into our interview. We have a very, very special guest. We have Marco Simonit, who you may have seen in the 5 questions, is a legendary viticulturalist. Now, Marco is not just any legendary viticulturalist that I happen to maybe be researching and looking for a guest and came upon. I actually came across Marco through many different channels. My Master of Wine Studies, you may have heard William Kelly mention him in his recent interview on the podcast. Marco has really taken the world by storm in terms of his approach to vine pruning and the effectiveness of the work that he's doing and their impact on making high quality wines. You can definitely say he's one of the most influential figures in the world of modern viticulture and possibly the most renowned vineyard pruning expert in the world. Marco is the co-founder of Simonit Sirch, which is the global consulting firm he and his friend Pier Paolo Sirch started together. They have this technique. It's a very involved and 360 technique of taking care of the vines, but the key aspect of it is gentle pruning, and he talks about that more in the episode. Marco's work and the effectiveness of this technique and their overall approach to viticulture has become so renowned that top wineries from across the world have been reaching out to work with him. So his Rolodex of who he's worked with is a who's who from the wine world. It includes from Bordeaux, Chateau d'Yquem, Chateau Latour, Chateau Angelus, Lynch-Bages. Moving over to Burgundy, he's worked with the likes of Domaine Laflèvre, Domaine Loire, Domaine de la Romanée-Conti. He's also worked with Louis Roederer in Champagne. He's worked with Gaia and Ornellaia in Italy, Henschke and Penfolds in Australia, as well as Schaefer and Spotswood, as well as Corse and in Napa. So that is just a selection of the top names that he's worked with. He's worked with many other very well-known wineries and producers as well, but that's just a small sample. And it's just a testament to the effectiveness of his work. And it was a really fascinating conversation. Now, I think at this point, if you're not into winemaking or viticulture yourself, you might be like, this episode's not for me. But this episode's really more than just pruning. Marco is very passionate, and he shares his thoughts across the whole spectrum. And this episode is really more about rethinking the relationship with the vine itself, both from a viticulturalist and winemaker point of view, but also a consumer and a wine drinker point of view. Thinking a little bit more about this living thing where the grapes come from and how the effects of the process in terms of the harvesting and how the vines are trained actually impact the vine itself, and how if you work with the vine and try to keep it as healthy and resilient as possible, the resulting fruit and longevity of the vine will make even better and better wine. So come back to the reason that we had Marco on and why he's so highly sought after by so many producers. Once he developed this technique and he was able to demonstrate his success, not only in his own vineyards, but with a couple other producers, word started to get out globally. And the key reasons for this is, one, his work allowed vines to be healthier. So you didn't have to replant them as often. They produced better quality fruit for longer and higher yields, especially for older vines. When they're treated properly, they have higher yields than if they're not. So that was one key attribute that different wineries were looking at. And then his work also helps either prevent or fight against and make vines more resilient to trunk diseases. Now, trunk diseases are some of the biggest threats to quality wines in the world today. They're a leading cause of vines having to be pulled up. They kill vines. And so it's a perfect time, perfect place for Marco to come and both help against things like climate change, the effects of long-term drought and heat, but also trunk diseases, which have become a bigger and bigger problem every year and are possibly the biggest threat facing vineyards today. So this conversation for me was one of both passion and almost artistry, and then also agriculture and the viticulture part of it as well. But what really sets Marco apart is his longer-term vision. Everything he's doing is not really a chore or something you have to do yearly to make sure you can harvest your grapes again next year, but it's something that is a passion of his. He's pruning each vine as if it's a work of art. Each one is bespoke, just trying to listen to what the vine needs and helping that create the best wine possible. So it's really a key to sustainability, terroir expression, and overall vineyard longevity. I hope everybody learns a lot from Marco and kind of feeds off his passion. I know I certainly came out of the conversation wanting to go just save some vines myself. So everybody enjoy. This is a fascinating conversation. I hope everybody fed off Marco's enthusiasm as much as I did. And without further ado, here is the vine maestro himself, Marco Simonit. Hey, Marco, thanks so much for joining today.
Very excited with you today.
It's an honor to have somebody who's on the forefront of their field here. I've heard so much of your work, of the work that you've done in pruning. So I'm really excited to kind of share that with our audience, and just the respect you have for vines in general is amazing. So could you maybe share a little bit about your background and how maybe like where you grew up and how you kind of got into farming, and then what led you to working with grapevines?
Of course, a pleasure. I grew up in the small farming with my grandfather and grandmother. So not the focus not was a lot about vineyards and wine. It was mostly about the cows and sheep and horses and different animals. Mostly the big interest was the milk come from the cows. And I grew up there, and it was a very amazing time of my life. So I think the sensibility maybe and the spirit of the observations, or what it is around you, the different seasons, the relation between the humans and farming, maybe come from there for me.
Very nice. And that was in Friuli, right? The general area?
Yeah, it's in Friuli, northeast of Italy. It's between the sea and the mountains. So it's a nice place to stay. Yeah.
Yeah. I was lucky enough to go a couple of years back or visit. So it was, I love the area and the wines. So you started working with livestock. Was it just that you were always around grapevines that kind of inspired you to start working with them? Or what was it that really kind of tipped you over to being like, there might be a better way to prune vines?
But my dream was to become vet. And so also the studies in the high school and the beginning of the university was in this direction. But after I changed my direction because of different things in the family coming. And the time was a time for me to find something to do, particularly some job, some work to do got my own money and go ahead with my studies. And so during this time, I tried different situations, and one was also to try to participate of the different, I don't know, what do you say, the concorsi. It's where when you have some opportunities to I don't know what do you say, it's difficult to explain. But anyway, was an opportunity to work for the association of the wine growers in the Collio area in the Friuli, so very close to the Slovenia. And in this time, I was really excited to start with this kind of experience, because my goal was to find something with the animals, particularly horses and cows. But this time, I really need to work and got some money. So when I come back at home and I said, my grandfather, I'm not really happy with this opportunity. Maybe he said no. He said me, no, you need to say yes, because you need to work and got your money. So you need to go ahead and say yes. Okay. And the situation was a really very beautiful, incredible, amazing experience. I met a lot of people, I learned a lot, and it was really one of the first times when I met really close the vines. We had the small vineyards in the family, but the vineyard was really small and just for to have some wine to drink in the family day by day, very simple wines. But whenever my grandfather asked me to go to work for help him in the vineyard, I not was really happy. I always like to spend more time with my grandmother to follow the animals. When I start to work with this association of vine growers, was the first time when I focus on the vines. And I'm very passionate about drawings. So I always drawing animals and trees particularly, and I start to draw in the vines. And during this time, when I start to work with this producers growing association called in the Collio area, I start to for the first time of my life to draw vines. And it was really crazy because I remember the day was before to leave to the end of the day. I sit in front of the vine and I start to draw the vine. And when you draw something, you go into the details and the trunk, the arms, and I start to draw the wounds. And there was a lot of questions jump in my mind. They said, what happened behind these wounds? What is, I don't know, was a lot of questions. And in the next days, I asked to this producer, hey, can I bring some vines? Because you said me maybe you pulling out these vineyards in the end of the season. Is it correct? Yes. But why you ask me this? Just because I would like to bring some vines and go to my friend carpenter to have a section to check inside the body of the vine, the structure, the trunk, the arms. Because during my drawings, these parts was really curious to understand what happened inside. I don't know why was this situation. And when I go with the vines to my friend the carpenter and we cut the vines in the middle like a section, I was really shocked because the structure of the vine was really compromised, a lot of dead wood inside, different kinds of woods, and smell like a fungi. Was just a few parts of the live wood. I understand that the white color was the live wood, and the black and the brown was the dead. The spongy texture was about fungi. It smelled like porcino, and was really surprised because nobody said something about this in the high school or in the university, even when we study a bit about viticulture. And this was 37 years ago, and no internet, no mobile iPhones. The information was really difficult to find some informations. And this was the time when I started to say, oh, wow, what is this? I like just to understand more, because also in Friuli, we have some varieties like Blanc and others very sensitive to the trunk disease. And jump in my mind the idea maybe these wounds and these situations inside the structure of the vine, inside the body, this is a connection maybe with the wound. Who knows? And I tried to ask to some professors and everybody said me, no, maybe yes, maybe not, but it doesn't matter. We prone from so far and we are focused in other things. So nobody was interested in this, but I tried to follow my sensitive and go ahead and try to understand a little bit more better around this. But the start was like this.
That's fascinating. So when you first started with these ideas, where was the first, or how did you get the first vines where you were allowed to prune them when you started being able to prune vines yourself, did you take a couple tests, like trial and error, to figure out what the best approach might be, or were you just following sap flow from the beginning in your mind?
No, it was nothing to understand. It was really confused. No information. Can you imagine my first book about consequences of the pruning, trunk disease, was a gift from Denis de Bourdieu professor in Bordeaux, and the owner also with different chateaus in Bordeaux. He passed away some years ago. Was very inspired from him. Was like a mentor for me. And he believed a lot in what we do. And he gave me a present. It was the book wrote from Lafon in 1921, where he's described the life of Poussard. Was a vigneron in Charente, Cognac. And he doing the same, more or less, observation and action like I do maybe 150 years before. It was very difficult to get information. And my first instinct, my first action was to travel. And so, where is maybe all vines around the world? Maybe I can understand something from the old vineyards. If they become older, maybe they have some, I don't know, particular things for become older, even in the pruning effects. And I start to travel around the different countries, Italy first of all, but also like Spain, Greece, the south of France, and start to observe connections and observe the morphology of the different kinds of architecture of the vines in the different places, and just understand the approaching. Doesn't matter the architecture, but and after this I said, maybe I can do something in this way, maybe I can do. And when I come back from these trips, I always try to do something in some vineyards in Collio here in the area. And thank you to some producers, they was available to say, okay, you can try my vineyards, something you think maybe it's different or better in this pruning, in what you have in your mind, but was really confusion, was nothing happened. And I do this kind of observation and action and try to understand something was the first 10 years. I never think this become a business for me. And it just was a curious side of my life and my professional side, because I just work inside and with the observations and the different place, different architecture, and try to do something different. I work inside, I build my own experience, try to study a little bit more about physiology, anatomy, and pathologies. And the day by day was a long time. And after 10 years, more or less 10 years, I asked some professors, hey, would you like to come to see what is my thing in the pruning and the shoot selection? I know I'm not interested in the pruning, but maybe it's interesting because I think can have some effects in the life of the vine, in the health of the vine. I don't know, not sure, but can you please come? No, but no time, maybe next time. So it was very difficult. Nobody was interested in this. But one day, one professor was Professor Scienza. He was a professor in Milano University. And he said, yes, why not? I can come to visit you. And when he comes, say, wow, well, this is very interesting. What are you doing? Maybe this is interesting because, I don't know, but the drought disease, the healthiness of the vines, I don't know, maybe a lot of things can be connected. And he started to talk about this with different producers in Italy. And these producers start to come to visit me, and I start to show them what happened. And it was a really long time. And this time I was like a technique and student, so student worker in this association. And during my job, I developed aside, during this experience, I developed aside this experience. But again, never think about the business, never think about maybe become a day professional, interesting way for me.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's so I was going to ask how long it took to kind of start seeing results. So it was about 10 years or so before you started seeing tangible things.
Yeah. In the first year, I understand nothing because no informations in the no the today is easy. You put internet pruning, consequences of pruning, or I don't know. You have a lot of information in a very fast time, but the time was very, very difficult. So in one side was also a good thing because I understand the travels become part of my life because I think we can learn a lot. If you travel, you can observe, talk about with the vineyards around the world, discover different architectures, and you can understand something. And this become a very important part for me because was the observation and the study about this and try to do something myself. Somebody at the time asked me, "Hey Marco, what happened about your passion?" Because in the area somebody start to talk about, "Hey, Marco Simonit, it's a little bit, I don't know what he doing with the pruning and the street selection." But and I said, "Hey guys, I cannot explain nothing about this because first of all, I need to understand a bit or more myself." So the vines in the beginning, where today we have the campus to show what it is possible to do in the different age of the vines, different genetic, different varieties, different architecture, different age, was built from myself. So I do myself, and it was very important for, again, understand a lot of things and go ahead to study more, go ahead to do more travels, go ahead to try again. It was the first 10 years was a some days very happy to say maybe some days very sad. I don't understand nothing. It was a very difficult time, but was very good time because I make a lot of drawings, a lot of notes, a lot of things, and this become part of our story. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely do. So once you started, now you have the academy and you're training folks, people all over the world. How did you get your first client or two? Did they have to come and see your work in Friuli before they let you work on their vineyard, or how did that work?
Yeah. After more or less 10, 12 years, thank you to this professor, Attilio Scienza, some producers come to visit me. And they say, "Wow, maybe this is interesting. And can you come to visit me, please, to visit my vineyards? And I would really like to know what do you think about our approach for pruning and shoot selection." I say, "Why, yes, why not?" And these producers was, a lot of them coming because Scienza was really famous and everybody knows him and everybody more or less trusting him. And so some of these producers was also Angelo Gaia, for example, or Ferrari or Frescobaldi, or I don't remember other very important vineyards, Planeta, Feudi di San Gregorio, Bella Vista. A lot of them coming, Cerreto, Brida, so many. And this time was crazy because, for example, Angelo Gaia come to visit me, and a couple of weeks ago, he asked me to go to visit his vineyard in Piemonte and after in Toscana. And at the same time, I go there and just to say, okay, what I saw and what I think. And he said me, "Can you help me, please, to try to do better again? Because I'm very interested to have vines, very healthy, longevity, and a good consistency in the production, and to try to have a very connected vines with the terroir. So I think it's important to keep the structure of the vines healthy, blah, blah, blah." I said, "Can you help me, please?" And in the same time, also others ask me the same. And they say, "Wow." I said, "Maybe this become a business for me." and I start to visit them. But of course, I cannot prove myself these vines in different wineries around Italy in this case. And I said, okay, maybe I need to have a relation with the teamwork, the people work in the fields, because the owners doesn't become to prune all the vines, or the winemakers maybe doesn't become to prune all the vines, but they have a lot of people have somebody help for pruning, for shoot selection, for harvest. You know what I mean? And I start also to study and work into how was the possibility to teach and coach the people who work in the field. And there was another chapter for me, another completely new chapter. And I started in this way in Italy. In Italy, of course, first of all in Friuli, and after in the different wineries and regions in Italy, and after in the other countries.
So when you started this, did you think about having your kind of program or academy or campus in Friuli, and would you have people come there to learn, or did you put together a curriculum, like a guide, and then just walk the pruners through that when you were visiting the wineries?
No. In the beginning, they come to visit me just because it was very important, the work I doing the first 10, 15 years, but it is visible today after 37 years. We have this campus where we can show all this process, okay? Was important for me. They come to visit and they saw something different. After that, of course, when you jump into the Nebbiolo vineyards in Piemonte or Sangiovese vineyards in Montalcino, or I don't know, Lo Mascalese in South Italy, was completely different genetic, terroir situation, social situation in terms of people come from there, with their culture, their approach. For me, it was always very important. They come in the beginning to visit me just to have a feeling to something different, or what is this. And after, for me, it was very important to go ahead with the approach, with the observation. So I said, okay, guys, I try to come to visit you. I'm very happy. Thank you for inviting me. First of all, I need to observe, what are you doing? What is your approach? What is the architecture in your region, in your winery, in your terroir? The reaction with the genetic, the impact in terms of the common action in terms of pruning and shoot selection, the people doing in this area. And after that, I said, okay, maybe we can do this, maybe we can try that, and just to share with the team workers and try to do something in the field, following progress, training on the job, and etc. This was the beginning, but it is still also a part of our approach today.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's so interesting because there are so many moving parts, or so much to prune. When you have a vineyard, they can be so big. So obviously, there's a lot of people involved in some of these processes. So translating your ideas, it's interesting. That's hard. I never thought about how difficult that part of the process would be.
Was very important, even in the different areas and regions in the world. I always ask when the people call me, okay, thank you for the invitation. First of all, I like to understand your approach and save time for the observation, study, answer, stay with the people, understand what the people are doing, make a lot of questions, and check what happened about in the area. And after, maybe try to say something, try to find something maybe different for help the vines, maybe to reduce the bad effects of the pruning, and try to have a simple connection with the team workers, because it's very important to have a simple language, simple solutions, not revolutions, but evolutions. And stay with the people working in the fields. I always spend a lot of time, days, under the rain, in the sun, or when street selection, under the snow, in the winter. Need to stay with the people working in the field, because it is not like a classroom and after rules, the same rules everywhere, but you need really to stay, to work together, to find solution in progress in the field, and you can grow inside and find a tailor-made solution, and the people become very reactive, happy, because you can find solution in progress. It is not like I wrote 2 books, for example. I try to do my best for make simple books with a lot of drawings, not to write too much, but the practical side in the fields, you need to are there and to develop the spirit of the vigneron, and the spirit of the vigneron in the artisanal spirit. The people observe with the eyes, make something with the hands, but it's always like a tailor-made an interpretation. I always say it also to my team, hey guys, please, we are not there around the world for make revolutions. We are for try to hide the relation between the vines and the humans, because the farming vines, it is not natural.
Mm-hmm.
Farming vines, it's farming. So it is some humans, some families, some companies, but it's a farming. So our role is to try to help the vines, the humans, to stay more, to have the best relation between the humans and the vines. Because the vines is not like the animals. Of course, they don't speak, but they show something. They show symptoms. You can learn from them, and you can make some actions in consequences of this, or try to prevent a lot of things. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I definitely know what you were saying. Can you share? I know it depends on where the vines are in the genetic material, but can you share a couple of the core principles of your approach that help that relationship grow?
Yeah, I don't know if I really understand your question, but
yeah, just like in your approach to pruning, maybe something has to do with sap flow. Maybe it has to do with the size of the cuts. Can you just talk about a little bit of what you recommend that's maybe different than what would be harmful?
Yeah, of course. A lot of people today talk about, I'm very happy, but talk about the flow, sap flow. It's very important. It's very, very important. One of the most important things, but it's not the only one. The combination of different things become very, very, they make the difference. Doesn't matter which kind of architecture. You can have different architecture of the vine according with the place, the genetic, the story, the tradition. So around the world, you have a lot of different things, different architecture. But one of the most important things is to build live wood. So I call this branching. So the structure of the vine needed to increase year after year until the vine still alive, all live long. And you need to find the space in the time available in according with your vineyard, because every vineyard is different. But you need to find the space for develop the architecture of the vine in the time for build every year more live wood. This is very important because in the live wood you have storage, nutrients, carbohydrates. You have a piece of live wood where the vines can build her structure and increase her magazine of nutrients. Of course, the respecting the sap flow is very important, because if you build the light wood every year, you can also increase the way of the sap flow from the roots to the trunk, to the arms, to the shoots, grapes, and back, etc. But it is a combination of different things. So branching, of course, respecting the sap flow in terms of trying to not reduce the way of the sap flow with the bad consequences of the wounds. Try to make small wounds, because, of course, the big wounds, they have a big consequences in terms of structure of the vine. So big desiccation cones. So big areas inside the structure of the vines become dead, and the vine abandon this. And the risk of strong disease in terms of fungi, lot of fungi, they are a very important family. And of course, in the middle of the landscape, there are so many fungi, bacteria, virus, etc. They can jump inside the structure, and they can become dangerous for some varieties, particularly in some places. So it's important also to try to make small wounds where the vine can be also have a reaction with some cicatrization of them. If they are small in the wood of 1 year old or 2 years old, because if you make wounds more bigger and the wood more aging, it is difficult for the vine to do the cicatrization. But you can also use some practices for try to not damage the diaphragm, for example. The diaphragm sometimes it is in the morphology and the anatomy of the shoot. You have the internode, you have the node, you have the bud position, you have the diaphragm between the different nodes and this in correspondence of the buds. And these diaphragms sometimes help a lot for try to reduce the development of the desiccation cones inside the structure. So we suggest also to use some respected wood. So not cut very close to the life part of the structure of the vine. If you need to make wounds for more to the 3 years old, sometimes maybe you need to do something. It is better to have a respected wood for try to not damage the diaphragm and try to help the healthy part of the vine to the life part of the vine to stay alive, to stay healthy, and not destroy the diaphragm with the wounds, because the diaphragm help to stop the way of the desiccation cone inside the structure. There are so many things, but the sap flow, it's very important, but the branching, again, so to build every year a piece of live wood is very, very important. And it's try to have a combination of this for try to build a dynamic architecture of the vines. I always say, hey guys, forget to have the same architecture in the same space for all the life of the vine. You lost your vines. You need to think different. It is not enough to make biodynamic, organic. It's an amazing approach, farming, but you need yourself, guys, to become dynamic with your vines, with your terroir, with your soil, with your landscape, and with the vines. So the vines need to grow, and you need to adapt the architecture in according with the age and the space available. So the architecture become dynamic during the life, and you can change. You can have an evolution in according with the space, with the age. So this is important to have also a vision. The vine growers need to have also a vision of the developing of the vines in the time. So it is a lot of combinations, but this is one of the most important for me. There are no rules, but you need to really understand where you are, the character of your wines, and try to find tailor-made solutions.
Mm-hmm. Now that all makes sense. Two things that would be helpful for my listeners for you to explain, I think. One would be, can you share a little bit about what desiccation cones are? Because I think that is very interesting. And then I was going to ask about trunk diseases, but we can get to that next.
For example, the desiccation cone, when you make a wound in the structure of the vine abandon this part and become dry. Normally, if you make a wound with the 2 centimeters of diameter, you can expect a desiccation cone inside the structure, the life structure of the vines, around 2-3 centimeters deep. If you make a wound with a 5 centimeters diameter, you can expect a desiccation cone inside between 5 and 10 centimeters. And you can imagine in accordance with the diameter. You can imagine the people in the farming, because it is farming, it is not natural. In the net of the vines, they looks like a creeper.
I have one right here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, if in the farming, it is lot of different approach, but it is still farming. So, they prune every year. So, potentially, every year, you can, in the best way, help the vines to increase the structure and increase the quantity of live wood, the way of the subflow, nutrients, and blah, blah, blah. Or, in the worst scenario, every year you can damage, you can reduce the quantity of live wood in your vine.
And that is what leads to vines being able to pull out earlier as well.
Exactly. And this is, you can every year increase the quantity of desiccation cone, so dead wood, dry wood. You can increase the dry wood, the dead wood, and you can, and the other side, the quantity of live wood go less, and less. You can imagine the vines after 15 years, 20 years. Sometimes we saw some vineyards, they become weaker, they become not very happy, they start to show symptoms about trunk disease, they need water, they need more nutrients. But you know what? It is not only the root. We need to think about also the structure of the vine, the trunk, the arms, and all the structure together. And if you increase the dead wood with the desiccation cones, the vines become less stronger, they lose energy, they lose life, they increase the risk of the pathologies, the trunk disease, they lose production, they become less connected with the terroir. Because the connection with the terroir, they are not only the roots. I said often, hey guys, you have an amazing terroir, but your potential is huge if your vines become connected with not 100%, but maybe 50% or 70% with your terroir. And you can imagine now around the world with the climate evolution, we have a lot of situations where we have very hot, dry, less quantity of water available, or very significant, extremely events with a lot of rain and after a lot of autumn dry. You need to have vines stronger, vines with the strong enough structure, with enough nutrients, enough carbohydrates, enough. They become resilient. We developed a study with the SVV in Bordeaux, with Laurent Genier and other people, and we saw in, for example, Sauvignon come from Bordeaux, Cabernet Sauvignon. There are one of the most sensitive vines with the trunk disease, and they compared the vines without arms and with arms. The vines without arms show a lot of symptoms with the trunk disease. The vines with arms, so without mutilations, with the big wounds, they show normally less symptoms with the trunk disease. But they found the fungi in the both in the vines with the mutilations and the vines without mutilations. But the vines without mutilations there are more resilience.
Mm.
And they can also have the fungi inside, or virus, or bacteria, but they are more stronger. They not show symptoms, or less, very, very less. So if we think about the very good terroirs, if we think about, hey guys, we like to do wine from terroir. We like to have in the wine the really character of the place. We like to have a very spirit of vineyard. We need to have connected wine. We need to have vines with a good enough quantity of live wood inside her body. And the pruning become one of the most dangerous moments where you can increase or reduce the quantity of live wood. You can encourage or reduce the life of the vines. You can keep consistency in the production or not. You can save water or not. Because with the vines, with the good, healthy enough supply body structure, they have more quantity of nutrients and they are more resilient, even during the worst part of the years when there are a lot of heat or a lot of different situations.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. If you have more live wood, it's easier to basically you're strangling the vine otherwise, and it's not able to move water, nutrients, what have you. No, this is all so interesting. I love just hearing about it. So I guess I wanted to ask, you touched on it a little bit, but about the trunk disease, do you think everybody is kind of talking about a rise in trunk disease around the world, but do you think it's just because of pruning methods that have been used and they're starting to have their effects, or do you think there's actually been an increase in trunk disease?
About the trunk disease is a very important chapter around the world. And it's always depending about a lot of things. Genetic, like I said, the terroir. We saw the same genetic in different terroir. They have a very different reaction. For example, I remember in South America, sometimes I saw some vineyards with them. They are not very happy. They are a little bit, but just to check inside the structure is full of fungi, but they don't show symptoms. If this genetic, if it was in Europe, was destroyed about the fungi, with the toxins of the fungi. So the place and the genetic combination with the terroir and genetic, it's very important. But so you can also have the same genetic in different place. They are more resilient just because you are in a different place. You can just an example, Cabernet Sauvignon in Napa and Cabernet Sauvignon in Bordeaux. If you have some approach, I saw some approach in Napa and say, hey guys, if you have this approach in Europe, your vineyard was just pass away. Okay. Same genetic, same clones, different place. Or different genetics in the same place. Another example. Sauvignon Blanc, Semillon. Sauvignon Blanc, same people, same kind of pruning, same kind of shoot selection. Sauvignon Blanc, after 20 years, suffer a lot from disease, show a lot of symptoms, lot of vines pulling out and plant. Semillon, nothing. Healthy, happy, but they have strong disease inside. So genetic and terroir play a very big deal. But this kind of fungi jump inside the structure through the wounds, not only with the pruning wounds, but sometimes the machines damage or other things. They can become dangerous. But the wounds in general, there are the doors where the fungi jump inside and after start to do his job, and the vines at a certain point show symptoms or not in according with like I said before. But there are a lot of things. Also the nurseries become a very, very critical, important point for prevention of disease. Okay. So this very complex situation, but at the end of the day, we can prevent, if we work well, from the nursery to the vineyard, with a good approach, the good knowledge, the good attention, we can prevent all disease.
Mm.
We can keep the vines less sensitive, more stronger, more healthy, more productive, and more resilient. Because we need also today to think about make farming in a good terroirs or make a great wines come from terroir, but we need very resilient and connected vines. So with the good pruning practices, the good shoot selection, we always speak only about pruning, but the shoot selection, the canopy management is very important. The connection with the guys. So one key point for me around the world is the human side. I suggest always, hey guys, you need to invest with your team or people come to help you, because in one side, you need to save your heritage. In the other side, you need to save your knowledge. And if people come to help you and they are not enough knowledgeable, they can make some mistakes, but not because they like to do mistakes, but just because they don't know enough. And I say, hey guys, do you know what? It is not enough to have the good vigneron today, to make a good practices in the vineyard, to make a good wine, to save the wine for you, but you need also to become a good teachers. When the people come or help you in the pruning, in the shoot selection, in the harvest, canopy management, you need to teach them. And everybody around the world have a problem and say, hey, do you know what, Marco? The people change every day and it is difficult for us. I know, is it your problem? Of course the people change, but we need to build something I suggest always to build something like a tailor-made operating procedures, and use this year after year, season after season, always to try to adapt and increase the details, and use this for teach and coach your guys and spend time in the field with them, because they like to learn, but we need somebody to teach them. And this is a big issue around the world. So
yeah, no, I think education's a key part. And here I know we're pushing up on time. Is there anything else you want to mention in terms of the academy that you guys run now, or what services are you offering aside from you coming and working with wineries?
No, our main focus is the consultancy in the wineries. But aside, I always believe in to share the experience. And I started in 2009 to build the first pruning schools in Italy. But after we go ahead with different collaborations, connections around the world, in Europe, in US, in South America, Africa Sud, Australia, New Zealand, to make pruning courses like a pruning schools. But also during the COVID, it was just an idea jump in my mind before the COVID to have a big hall, like a platform where the people working in the field around the world can share experience and got information. So we built a digital academy when you can follow online courses and you can also make some physical practical experience in the different places in the world. So this is very important for us. So to share the knowledge and learn ourselves day by day, because one of the most lucky things in our side is to turn around the world every day and learn from the best situations and different situations around the world, and share experience and got experience from the people. This is amazing. I always say it every day, hey guys, first of all, we need to observe, listen, and after think about and say, this is for me the most important, because I always like to have a tailor-made approach, because everybody is different, everybody has a story, everybody try to do the best. So we need to take care in approach And the best approach for me is always to find a tailor-made solution if we can help. If not, doesn't matter. But this is the approach for me.
Awesome. Well, I think that's the perfect place to leave this. Thank you so much for your time today. This has been great, Marco.
Thank you.
All right. That was our interview with Marco Simonit. I hope everybody fed off his enthusiasm as much as I did and also learned a good bit about taking care of grapevines along the way. Pruning is essential, and I think it's often overlooked. So next time you're in a vineyard, go check out the vines. You can definitely see the history of the vines just written on them through their pruning scars. That is our episode for this week. We'll be back with another 5 questions on Friday and a weekly wine report on Monday. Until then, cheers.